Hi everyone, it's Gina. Welcome to my channel, The Artful Addict. And today I'm going to show you how to make your own stamps. This is another project that was inspired by the YouTube channel, The Creative Cove. And I referenced that channel in my previous video where I used this stamp. So I thought it was only appropriate to follow that up with a video on how to create your own stamps. So far, I've made 22, and these are just practice because drawing and carving are two very different things. So I found out. So far, my drawings to me are way better than the end result of my carving, but I think like anything else, it's just going to take practice. I am still learning and I have a very long way to go, but I thought I would bring you along. And if it's something that you've always been interested in, I think you're really going to love it. I enjoy it even though I'm not always pleased with the result. It's still a lot of fun, and just the whole idea that I could create my own stamp is just really exciting to me. So I'm going to go through the supplies you'll need as well as the steps on how to create your own stamp. I hope you'll join me. Here's the list of the supplies you'll need. The first supply that you'll need is a lino cutter tool. Now I have two different ones. The first one I ordered is the one from Pixiss, and it came in this Ziploc bag, and it came with a handle, 6 different cutting heads, 5 sheets of the pink lino. It was like $18 and it worked fine. The blades are very sharp. The tool was easy to hold. The inside of the tool looks like this. It has that little carve out. So you loosen the top and then your cutting blade just fits right into that little carved out area, and then you tighten it. Okay, and there you go. So that kit comes with everything you need to get started. Now I ended up getting another cutting tool, and this one is from Speedball, and let me show you the difference. It comes in this box, and it comes with 5 different cutting blades, and all the cutting blades are housed inside the handle. So that can be very convenient. Now, the whole reason I bought this one is because the smallest cutting blade, the one I find I use the most, is the V shape. It was too wide. And here's an example. I really struggled getting the fine lines, which is why this one is so chunky. So that's when I found the Speedball. This one cutting head was the main reason I bought the whole other tool. So you loosen this up, and this has a ball in here. You slide the end of the carving blade, which matches exactly to the other one. Even though they're housed and they're held together differently, you can still use them interchangeably. So you loosen this up and you just slide the end of the cutting tool in between the ball and the outside like that. And then you tighten it up. And there you go. There are a few other choices on Amazon. Those are the 2 I started with. The Speedball, it comes with a handle and the 5 different cutting blades. Its list price is usually $14.99. Online, they have a sale for like 17% off, and so it's $12.41, which I think is an awesome deal. If you don't buy a kit in your initial purchase, you'll need to buy your linoleum separate. And it's not really too expensive. You can get 8 pieces of this 4x6 carving block for $16.99. And it is on sale. I think the regular list price is $23.99, and you can get it for $17 right now. So that's a pretty good deal. The third supply you need is paper or paper pad. I use it to draw out my design. The next supply you'll need is some tracing paper. Now, when I first started, I was drawing straight on the lino, and you can do that with a pencil or pen, but I'm not a super great artist. I was finding it really difficult because I couldn't figure out how to erase. So it was really better for me to draw on a piece of paper first, where I can erase and erase and erase until I get the design and the look that I want. Then I can go over it with tracing paper. But if you are great at drawing, you can avoid this step altogether because you can draw directly on the lino. For me, this is a valuable step. The next supply you'll need is a cutting mat, because these tools are really sharp, and if it slips, and it will, it's easy to jab and poke into whatever surface you're cutting on. That's how I got this little divot in my white desktop. So to prevent that, you really need to have a good cutting mat. Probably a bigger one would be better. So that is definitely an important supply. The last supply you need is some ink. You start cutting out your design, you'll get to the point where you think, okay, that's pretty good. The real test is when you stamp it and see the image. It'll tell you right away if there are any areas that you want to make adjustments. So you definitely want to have some ink nearby, because chances are you'll need to stamp it a few times to really get an idea if you're satisfied with the result. I already referenced some of these steps in my explanation of the supplies that you'll need, but here's a quick overview. So the first thing we'll do is we'll draw our design on a piece of paper. Now remember, you need to draw it opposite of what you want your final result to look like. Take this pumpkin. If this is how you want it to look, you want to stamp exactly like this, with the little stem going off to the left. It's not going to look like that on the stamp, because when you flip it over to stamp, it's going to be going to the right. You'll want to draw and carve your image opposite to how you want the stamp to look once you've stamped it. Next, we trace the design with the tracing paper. In the third step, we transfer that design from the tracing paper to our lino. Then we're going to cut out our design with the lino tool. We'll ink it, stamp it, and take a look. You will really repeat steps 4 and 5 until you get the design exactly how you want it and you're happy with the end result. So let's get started. I've already drawn my image on my piece of paper, which is step number 1. Step number 2 is I take a piece of my tracing paper and I trace over my design, and I'm going to use pencil. This is also a step where you might want to make any adjustments to your picture if you want. You can certainly do that here. Or if you really like your design, you can trace exactly over it. Once I'm happy with my first trace, I go over it again and make it a little bit darker. This really ensures that my traced image has lots of graphite on it. Step 3, I'm going to transfer my design onto my lino. To do that, I'm going to flip it over so that the graphite pencil drawing is face down. I'm going to just lay it on. You can even, at this point, just rub it like this. And see, it will lightly transfer. But I go ahead and retrace on the back side to help push the graphite onto the lino. And that way you get a little bit darker image. There, so you can see that a lot better. Now, I tend to go over it again. I have my original drawing as a reference, and I just want to make sure I make some clean lines so I can easily see where I need to carve. And now I can go to the next step, which is to start carving. So my first cut is going to be around the circumference of my image. For that, I'm going to use my smallest blade. This can be really slick, so you want to be careful not to dig into your image, because once you make that cut will be there. So I'm going to go around the edge, and I'm going to follow the line of the pencil as best I can. I have also found that it's easier for me if I turn my lino rather than turning my cutting blade hand. But you might have to just figure out what works best for you. So that's what I have so far. When I get to where I want to stop, especially at a corner, I try to lift up, and I lifted up just a little too far. So see, I broke the line from where I drew. You'll find you have to make small adjustments to your original picture sometimes, especially when you're first learning. Alright, so that's what I have so far. See, it's not perfect, but that was my first pass. I'll probably go over it again with my small tool and make some fine adjustments right around the edge of my image. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to widen this cut area a little bit. And that's where having two tools can come in, because this small blade is the one I will use just about for everything on this pumpkin. So that way I can leave this one attached to my main tool and have another tool to use a different blade as I see that I need one. So I'm going to go around the circumference again just to make the cut area a little bit wider. See, look at the difference. I don't know if you can see, but my original cut was a little bit closer and I left this lip. So I'll end up going back over and trying to get a nice deeper groove a little bit closer to my original edge. But for now, I'm going to keep going around it. I don't know if you've noticed, but you can see when I get to the end, it moves really fast. And if you notice, I'm keeping my fingers away from the blade as I'm cutting, because these are really sharp. And if I'm holding it like this, which is what you really want to do, because you want to give it some resistance to help you cut. If it went like this at the end, it would dig right into my finger, and that would really hurt. You have to be really careful. So when I'm doing my initial cut, and this is a really deep cut, I'm trying to keep my fingers well away from the way that my cutting tool is facing. I didn't go into this little area because this tool is too wide and I wouldn't be able to get just that tiny little bit of lino out of the way without cutting into my image. So I'll have to use my smaller tool to do that. So I'm going to take another pass and try to clean up and get as close to the actual image as I can get. So I've pretty much got everything cut out around my image. Now I'm going to go in and start adding lines to my pumpkin. Now here's a key thing to remember. Anything that you want to show up as a stamp, if you want it to be dark, You don't carve that space, okay? If I want this to stamp black, I don't carve it. So that's something to remember. You want to carve out the empty space around it. I've kind of cut out right around the lines I've drawn. And again, it's really more just basic lines at this point. I did add a little bit into the stem, but I tell you what, I'll go ahead and cut this out and we can stamp it right now just to see what it looks like at this stage. Now I'm going to use scissors for this. In your kit, you'll get a blade that's for cutting the lino. But to be honest, I found one of the easiest ways is to just use a good pair of scissors, at least for the initial general big cut. I definitely encourage you to play around with the cutting blades that come with your tool. Normally I do a lot more carving before I do this step, but I thought for the purposes of the video, I'd go ahead and show you what the lines look like that I've just added. If you flip it over and look at it, you can immediately see what it looks like. So let's go ahead and stamp. And there you go. That's what I've got so far. In this image, you can see where I went in too far when I was originally cutting. I kind of went into the stem. So that's an area I'll need to figure out how to fix. Also, to the overall shape of my pumpkin, try to maybe round these edges just a little bit. Okay, that helped a little. It looks like I may have some little corners there. When it's just little bitty bits, it can be really hard to get, and so I'll take a small pair of scissors and try to make some of those cuts like that. Same thing with the little pieces of lino that stick up. You see it got inked right here. It didn't show up over here though, so it's probably okay, but since it did pick up ink, I want to cut that down. Now I'm going to work on my pumpkin with all the little lines and give it a little more texture. You want to angle it in a way that helps to support that it's round. So these are going to come out this way, and these are going to be angled more this way to show the shape of the pumpkin. So I've added quite a bit of lining in there, lots of etching. You really want to make sure all the little pieces that you've etched are out of the way so that you can really get a good idea of what your stamp looks like. Turn it over and that's your first look. Oops. Sorry, I have a new setup, so I apologize if some of this is off camera. I'm trying to pay attention to that. All right, so that's our second stamp, and that's where we are right now. I can take a look at that and see if there are things I'd like to change. What I tend to struggle with, and that's getting the clean line. Now the blades are sharp. You might have been thinking, well, she said not to have her hand in the way, but my fingers were there when I was making these lines, but they were really light. I wasn't pushing down very hard, so the risk of running into my finger was very low. You can see I fixed that issue with the stem. See that piece sticking out right there? There's a smoother transition. And I've narrowed down the rest of the stem because I had to narrow down the base. These little inky marks here is too high. It's picking up ink. I can see the real dark areas where I might need to put some more lining and to really outline this, to identify this as a separate section of the pumpkin. So you just keep stamping, analyzing, and carving until you get the image that you want. So I'm going to go in and see if I can't clean up just a little bit more. So this was our first stamp. That's our second stamp. Let's take a look and see how we are now. Okay. Push that down, and that looks pretty good. It's a little dark right there, but you know, sometimes it's nice to have little sections that have a little more ink on them. Looks like I might could do a little bit more with the stem. The lines I had previously put might have been too shallow. They didn't register because the ink just filled them up. So I think I'll work on the stem just a little bit, and I might wrap this one up. One more time. It looks a little strange right here, so I might try to smooth that out, really show the curvature of the pumpkin. So I think I'll work on that, and I'll clean up these little inky edges right here. This was 3, that's 4. I hope this is the last one. There's the first look. Push it down. There's our image. Not bad. Let's see if I can't get it to stamp straight up and down. Let's try that. Yay! I like it. I'm going to stop right there. I hope you've enjoyed this video today. I would love to know how many of you have ever tried this. Do you have any tips to share with everyone else with me? I would enjoy hearing some tips on how to improve. If you like this video and found value in it, then I would really appreciate the thumbs up. Share it to a friend who may enjoy it as well, and hit that subscribe button. If you've watched a few of my videos and you're kind of digging my content, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe. That's a big help. Well, I think that's it for now. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.